The most important aspect of a hair transplant surgery is the consultation and pre-operation. This is where you really have to do your homework. These are really important. 10 questions and concerns that you need to look into before you ever decide to use a certain surgeon for your hair transplant. The first question I think you should ask is, who are some other top surgeons? The reason I think that you should ask this question is that anyone who's really confident in their own business and their own ability should have the confidence to point you in the direction of other surgeons. Reason being that this is a surgery, this is a doctor, and it shouldn't be all about the sale. It should be about giving you great results. And if you want to see any other kind of doctor, if you want to see a dermatologist, they would be open to pointing you to other dermatologists that you might also want to check into. But for some reason with hair transplant surgeries, because they want the business for themselves, often they won't tell you other surgeons. But I think this is really important because you need to be able to gauge one surgeon's work versus another surgeon's work, and that's one way that you can decide on pricing and all these types of things. So ask, say, okay, great. Looks like you do great work, but who are some other top surgeons that I can look to as well? And if I think that you guys offer the best value and the best work, I'll come back to you. Number 2, make sure that they're certified by the American Board of Hair Restoration Surgeons. Number 3, always make sure that the surgeon that you're picking specializes in hair restoration surgery. There are a lot of cosmetic surgeons that also do hair transplants. So they do nose jobs, they do whatever, and they also do hair transplants. That's not what you want. You want someone who this is what they do every single day, and this is what their staff is dedicated to doing every single day. Number 4, always make sure to see tons of before and after photos, because it can very much be doctored. To give you an idea, the first hair transplant surgery that I had, I talked to the hair transplant consultation guy, and he told me, oh, Dr. So-and-so did my hair transplant. And I looked at this guy's hair and I thought, wow, that looks great. Well, come to find out, about 3 years later, that guy had had his hair transplant done by that surgeon, but that was his 5th surgery that he'd had. So his 5th surgery was done by the surgeon who he was recommending. So all of the information wasn't there. Of course, his hair looked great, but he didn't tell me that that was his 5th surgery and that surgeon had only done the front of his hairline. So when you're getting this before and after picture, you need to know just how many surgeries it took to get to the before and after. It's the same thing with me. I can show you my before. That's before I ever had any hair transplant. And then I can show you my after. Well, that was after 3 surgeries. So if you just saw before and after, you might go, oh, wow, that's amazing. This is the before and this is the after. But it took 3 surgeries to get there. So it's really important to know what the before and after exactly means. If it's possible, talk to some other patients that this doctor has done surgery on, see the before and after 1 surgery, before and after 2 surgeries, before and after 3 surgeries. Number 5, avoid paying by the graft whenever possible. A lot of people say, how many grafts did you have? How many grafts? Well, if someone says, let's say, we're going to give you 1,000 grafts, they can actually chop these hairs up into as many grafts as you really want. So they could give you 1,000 1-hair grafts or 1,000 1- and 2-hair grafts and only a few 3-hair grafts. And the thing is, you're going to get a super thin look, and because all of that chopping often makes the hair not grow as well, just chopping it up into all those little pieces. So you might get 2,000 1-hair grafts. Nobody's going to do that, but let's hope they wouldn't. But let's say you get 2,000 1-hair grafts and only 500 of them grow. Well, that's a horrible result. Okay, so it's not all about how many grafts you got. It comes down to a lot of different things. One of those was how many hairs were put in. One of the reasons that I like the multiple follicular unit surgery, the MFU, which is what I had done for all 3 of my surgeries, is that In the front, multiple follicular units don't look good, but in the back, because it's actually multiple follicular units, it's not just one follicular unit, meaning, you might have 2 hairs in that one follicular unit or 1 hair in that one follicular unit. Instead, with a multiple follicular unit, you can actually get, maybe up to like 6 hairs, because you'll have multiple follicular units within that, and you can slide that in. And for the front, it doesn't look good, but it gives you much more density for the back on certain types of hair. Again, it depends on your type of hair. On a guy with very thick hairs, this might not be good, but on someone with thinner hair, you can use those multiple follicular units and get a thicker look than you would by chopping them all up. So it's really important exactly how this is being done. You really can trust the surgeon. There's the other way of pricing besides grafts, which is the way that I chose, is to actually charge by the square centimeter of tissue. So instead, you're charged by how much tissue actually comes out. Sometimes with the FUT surgeries, FUT follicular unit transection, or MFU, multiple follicular units, they will charge by the amount of tissue that comes out. Now, the problem with this is if you have a greedy doctor, then they can go too low. So they'll take out more tissue than they really should in that one surgery. They could go too low in the back beyond the safe zone of where, that safe donor hair can be taken from. So it's really important you kind of understand which way the doctor is charging for the grafts or they're charging for the tissue, and that you really trust that doctor to work in your best interest. Number 6 is kind of part of number 5. When it comes to pricing, you need to understand apples to apples really what you're getting. Just saying that you're getting a certain number of grafts or a certain amount of tissue, you really kind of need to understand what's happening with these grafts and what's happening with this tissue. Number 7 is really important. Does this surgeon offer free scar fixes? To me, this is extremely important because it means that that surgeon really believes in their own work and their ability to, have really small suture lines. If a doctor doesn't offer free scar fixes, if you wanted to go back and cut out some of that area where maybe the scar was a little bit too thick, if they don't offer that for free, then it must mean to me that they don't really believe that it's going to be a small enough suture line in order to warrant you not coming back. Because if they believe it's going to be really small anyway, then you're not going to come back, right? Because you don't need to fix a invisible scar. Number 8, do not underestimate the experience of the staff who's actually working with your surgeon. Because the surgeon is taking out the tissue, right? And they're making some of the holes so that you can put the tissue, the new grafts in. But it's really the staff that's doing all of that very labor-intensive work, and they're placing the grafts, which is extremely important. So you need to know that this is a staff that works with this surgeon all the time, and they're regularly doing this stuff. They're spending, every day they're coming in and they're placing these grafts, and they're experts in that field as well as the surgeon. Number 9, make sure you choose a doctor that offers all of the latest types of surgeries. The reason being that if you choose a doctor who only does FUE, well then guess what they're going to try and sell you on? FUE, exactly. If you choose a doctor that only does FUT, guess what you're going to get? FUT. They're going to tell you that's the best for you. So, and it really depends on your situation and your hair type, the amount of hair loss that you have as to which one is really the best choice for you. Or MFU, multiple follicular units, that might be the best for you. So make sure that you choose a doctor that does all 3 of those, that does FUT, does FUE, and does MFU. Much more likely that that surgeon is going to pick the one that's really the best suited for your needs and not just what he is able to do. Number 10. Extreme pressure to sell you a hair transplant and a life-changing decision are not a good mix. So if you go visit a hair restoration clinic, you should expect some follow-up calls or emails saying, hey, I just wanted to kind of check in with you, see if you're interested in doing this hair transplant or any more questions that you have. But what you shouldn't be getting, and what I think is a red flag, is to be getting follow-up phone calls every single week going, hey, all right, we just dropped the price by $1,000 if you want to come in. Oh, we have this one spot here. We'll drop the price by an extra couple grand if you can come in. So people that are really needing to sell you a hair transplant, that's probably not who you want to be choosing surgery with. Imagine if you were going to go in and have some kind of heart, replacement valve surgery, and you went in to have a consultation with the doctor, and then the next week the guy calls you and it's like, hey, so if you want to have a, heart transplant valve surgery next week, we'll drop the price for you. I mean, that's probably not what you want. And hair restoration is a really serious thing. And so it's not something that you should be mixing sales with, in the sense of, okay, we'll drop the price, we'll get this now, like, come on in, do this now. It should be something where you're consulted in the same way you would be consulted for any other major surgery. Lastly, this is a bonus, number 11, the cost of flying. This shouldn't be as important. So a lot of people worry about, oh, I've got to fly to so-and-so, I've got to fly here, fly there. If you really find a surgeon that you're really comfortable with, make the trip. Most hair restoration surgeons, they offer some kind of flight package where if you fly in, they'll reimburse you part of the cost. That way it just opens up their ability to have clients from all over the world to come in and not just local people. So that's quite common in the hair restoration business. So don't worry so much about the flight. Worry about finding a hair restoration surgeon that you feel very comfortable with and has answered these other 10 questions.